So Leute, was geht ab? Willkommen wieder in Let's Fast Part 2. Ja, ich habe Let's Fast schon 6 Monate nicht mehr gemacht und ihr wundert euch jetzt, wieso ich jetzt wieder ein Video von Let's Fast mache. Ich bin schon mit Story durch, aber es gibt etwas Neues. Also die Folge, wie heißt es nochmal? Vorgelernte Levels, also eigentlich gelöschte Levels, welche eigentlich im Spiel nicht vorgekommen sind, weil es gab in Trailern welche Szenen, welche in Spiel nicht vorgekommen sind, also in Story-Modus. Und hier haben wir 3 Levels, also Jackson Party, Kanalisation von Seattle, ich kann dieses Wort nicht aussprechen, sorry, und die Jagd. Also hier ist noch da, wo Dina Ellie geküsst hat und dann Joel sich mit noch anderen Typen so gestritten hat. Ich weiß nicht, wie dieser Typ noch heißt. Hier haben wir Kanalisation, das weiß ich nicht. Und das ist die Jagd. Also Ellie folgt der Blutspur zu einem verlassenen Gebäude. Also, ich würde euch jetzt alles in Ruhe erklären. Also Jackson Party, ja, ihr wisst schon, da wo Dina Ellie geküsst hat. Also das möchte ich nicht so viel erklären, weil ihr wisst schon. Kanalisation, das weiß ich nicht, über was das uns zeigen will oder über was das ist, das weiß ich nicht. Gar nicht sogar. Und die Jagd ist da, wo Dina Ellie schon einfach so gelassen hat. Also, wo Dina einfach abgehauen ist von Ellie und Ellie dann alleine war. Und ja, dann gibt es noch so einen kleinen Zusatz davon. Aber der Zusatz dauert nur 5, 6 Minuten, also nichts Besonderes. Aber ich will euch einfach das zeigen. Ich hab einfach auf YouTube so gescrollt, weil ich sehe so ein Video, gelöschte Levels in der letzte Phase. Ich denke mir so, okay, ich muss bestimmt ein Video darüber machen und euch zeigen, persönlich. Also bitteschön, hier habt ihr es. Also, fangen wir an mit Jackson Party. Ja, Start, alles, ja, perfekt. Ich bin gespannt, was wir da, genau, also was Natural Dog da uns zeigen will. Weil ich weiß nicht genau, wie das aussieht, aber ich habe nur gehört, es gibt
You're about
eigentlich
to
gelöschte
play an
Levels.
unfinished level from The Last of Us Part 2.
Lost Levels, Jackson Party, ja, die gelöschte, ja,
The
hab
reason
ich's
we
gesagt.
added this section is there are a few sequences, and we picked the 3 of the best ones, that we cut from the game. You know, often we build a game that's much bigger than what ends up being the final product. They were months away from being finished, but we wanted to give you an insight of what it's like when we built a game, because often we have this whole thing constructed and it doesn't have final art or audio or dialogue. And here you get to see the building blocks of what it's like when we first string a bunch of these levels together. This
Ja,
is the
genau.
intro to the first deleted level, and this one is the roughest of the 3. We wanted to show more of how Jackson operates. So this is the festival where Ellie ultimately kisses Dina. This sequence would have come very late in the
Ach
game.
so,
We
ja,
got
also er erklärt
flashbacks
uns
that we
das
know
auch
while
schon,
we're in
wie
the
ich es euch
farm with
erklärt
Dina.
habe.
And we wanted to show what is the rest of Jackson doing, and wanted to put on the stick, make it interactive. So you could see when you're outside, there are all these almost like carnival
Übrigens, Leute,
games
das ist
that you can
dieser
play.
Erfinder von
You
Last of
could
Us.
mix drinks, you could play with these kids that are playing a sort of clicker Marco
So dieser
Polo,
Creator, welcher
sit
das
down and
gemacht
listen to
hat.
conversations. And all the different interactions were first or second pass, very, very early passes. The building blocks are there, but nothing is final. And ultimately, while we were very excited by this sequence, it's pretty fun and lighthearted. It just slowed things too much as we're barreling towards the end of the story at this point.
Mhm.
So again, reminder, rough, missing audio, missing animation, missing gameplay tweaks,
Ja, genau,
missing
das meinte ich auch.
dialogue, but pretty representative of what it would have been. So
Gelöschte Szenen und
enjoy.
so, Dialogs. Aber auf jeden Fall, leider gibt es keine Untertitel, also ich habe nicht so viel verstanden. Und ja, ich glaube, ihr habt schon verstanden, was er meinte. Also da wird auf jeden Fall so nur so ein kurzer Dialog sein, wie es nochmal passiert ist da bei Party. Was er so gemacht hat. Dann mal los. Okay, was haben wir denn hier?
Originally, this level was going to transition us to
Ah,
farm.
okay, also es gibt
Would
keine
go
deutsche
all the
Sprache,
way through to
schade.
the dance, where Ellie and Dina share their first kiss.
Ja,
Then we
genau.
would play through farm, and when Ellie plays the guitar at night, she would remember the Seth incident. So, the opening for this was a little tricky. We needed it to match at least a little what you might expect emotionally coming from prior beats, because we were already purposefully disorienting you in time and space. Remember, you just came from this huge fight. To jump straight into it would have been a little too jarring.
Ich hoffe, ihr könnt ein bisschen
After
verstehen,
some
was
back and
gegangen ist.
forth, we rooted it in Ellie's nerves, calling back to her hands shaking in the theater. But this time, for a much more innocuous reason we'll find out later. She's nervous because she has a crush on Dina, who is the only reason why she's here at the dance.
Okay, besser wäre es so, wenn es Untertitel geben würde, aber leider gibt es keinen Untertitel, also ein Minus. Aber mal schauen, ich gebe diesem Zusatz noch eine Chance, wir gucken, wie es alles aussehen wird. Okay.
Something we really wanted to do was highlight the way their lives had turned upside down since she went down this path. We had this idea of recontextualizing all of our usual gameplay mechanics that were designed for really violent ends. The workbench, door bashes, throwable weapons, and even the infected, which is my personal favorite. Peppered throughout the level are moments of levity or shared history, all the while seeing how happy and mundane they all were before her huge revenge odyssey.
Okay. Und jetzt gehen wir nachher dahin. So, sympathisch, let's go. Oh, das ist bestimmt jetzt ein Haus oder Kirche. Okay, oha, wir haben schon hier 3.
It
Okay.
is not a festival without one of these throwing games. This one, of course, uses our throwable
Das
system where you're often chucking
Milchflaschenspiel.
explosive things or stunning things, but for a more wholesome purpose, although some people take this game really seriously. A fun aspect of this is if you did well, you could win a toy here. Ellie would place it in her pocket. If you had done this, you'd find the toy with JJ, the baby, later back at the farm. When we cut this, the toy made it through anyway because it was so cute. It is the same one you see on the tractor at the farm. Ollie the elephant.
Okay. Und schon bis bald. Macht ihr also von unten? Netter Versuch, was? Netter Versuch. Sowieso nicht fair. Aber die sagen auch gar nichts. Das ist eigentlich nicht so mega gut gemacht, das nur einfach um so uns zu zeigen,
The makeup
wie es war.
artist is pretty simple. It's one of those little in-game scenes we
Die
peppered in
Make-up
to make it feel like Ellie had roots in the
Endlage.
town.
Welcher Make-up machen die gar
Hallie, our
nicht?
writer, mentioned that in her mind, an ex-girlfriend of Ellie's tattooed her arm to cover up her scar. So we figured this might be the only
Warte.
time you get to see that. We wanted to hint at it and allude to it and make it feel like there had been so much more that had been happening and so much more that Ellie threw away.
Okay, mal schauen. Okay, ich sehe kein Make-up. Die hat uns gar nichts gemacht. Okay. Spielt er jetzt als Klicker oder was? Hm. Wirklich? Okay. Hey, yo. Okay, also ich muss sagen, das ist nicht so mega gut gemacht, wegen, weil man kann keine Stimme hören und so, aber
This is
ist auch
one of my
lustig.
favorite sections because I think
Das
that it achieves
Klickerspiel.
both the slice of life
Okay,
aspect of
Klicker sind doch
Jackson
gefährlich,
while
doch
also being a
nichts
stark
Gutes oder
reminder
nichts
of how
Lustiges.
dark the world that they live in really is. To attract attention and curiosity, one of the kids was supposed to make this adorable, messed up little clicker impression, and the others would giggle. We tried a version where if you got close enough, the kid might try to follow you a
Sieht
little
da
before turning
zuletzt
back.
von.
Since clickers are blind and move by echolocation, for this game of messed up tag, Ellie must close her eyes and listen for when the children give themselves away. The thought was that these kids are in relative safety. They still grow up with the dangers of clickers and runners, and all those lessons would embed themselves in the games that they play. When the festival got cut, they tried to preserve this moment and move it to the front of the game where the snowball fight is, as a tutorial. However, being in the headspace of a clicker doesn't really teach you how to deal with them. Eventually, it evolved, and they instead made the snowball fight, which was, I think, way more effective. For me, it's character illuminating that not only does Ellie know this game, she plays along. There's a familiarity with the kids that's really nice to see, especially because it's such a difference from the Ellie we see later, who has a sort of hollow normalcy
Okay.
that she's trying to get with JJ, but kind of fails.
Okay. Aber die reden auch nicht viel, auch, muss ich ehrlich sagen. Was ist das hier? Wenn ich hinsetzen habe. So sitzen. Okay, ich dachte, es würde was passieren, aber nein. Okay, was ist da?
There's a hidden spot at the back that was just a bit of fun. It was highlighting Jackson's normalcy with something we would find in a real world. In the back, you would find teenagers finding some alone time with each other in a dark corner of a party.
Teenager.
It was rewarding the player for peeking into a hidden corner, but ultimately redirecting them back to the festival. We also had versions of them smoking weed here, despite Maria's consternation.
Textur ist auch nicht so
Probably
mega
having
gut
gotten it
gemacht,
from
kann man
G.
sehen auch. Muss ich auch sagen, ehrlich. Aber ist schon spannend, so zurückzukommen in der Last of Us. Hab auch lange nicht mehr gedreht. Aha. Okay. Maria. Da, mir auch. Wo ist Joel? Und das alles, ich glaube. Oder? Ja, ist alles. Okay, jetzt machen wir die Kanalisation von Städtel. Ich kann es nicht aussprechen, diese Stadt. Ohne Spaß, ist so schwer. Ich weiß nicht, wie man das ausspricht. Okay. Also, wie gesagt, es sind so kleine Levels einfach.
In this second deleted level, which is an extended sequence of the sewers in Seattle, this comes on the heels of where Ellie goes into a building and she survives an attack by stalkers and gets thrown out of the window and gets swept away by the current. And then we cut this section that used to be there in the final game. Now you will get to play it. So this was a way to get a bit more interesting puzzles, interesting traversal, figure out how Ellie can navigate the sewers
So,
with the
die haben
final
es
current.
gelöscht einfach.
Ultimately, with a lot of
Okay.
these levels and
Verstehe.
these sequences, the reason why we cut them were for pacing purposes. But here it is for you in this very kind of raw form that part of it will feel finished, parts of it will feel like assets are missing as far as audio, animation won't be final. But it's a glimpse into what a game looks like when it's months away from finishing. Enjoy.
Okay, wie ich richtig verstanden habe, das noch da, wo, ja genau, wo uns er angegriffen hat, diese Stalker, no, Stalkern. Und da haben sie mir gefallen. Genau. Oh, ich kann mir schon Ellie hören. Endlich. Oh. Oh ja. Die Szene kennen wir auch schon von Story. Ja. Jetzt muss sie diesen Stalker abstechen, genau. Und jetzt sind das die gelöschte Levels. Das ist das Level, welches gelöscht wurde. Ja, sieht schon aus bisschen anders, kann man schon sehen. Als normal, wie bei normalen Story-Modus, kann man schon sehen. Ja, ist viel anders. Okay, wo jetzt? Ich einfach hinklettern? Ja. Okay, ich habe hier so. Okay, ich habe hier Waffen. Das bedeutet, dass wir die schießen können.
This level, internally known as Fine Nora, was quite long in duration as we had to make Ellie traverse a far distance to the opposite side of downtown
So,
Seattle.
so.
The sewer section was originally longer than what we released the game with, approximately 10 minutes more. This was one of the few areas of the game that used water flow as part of a traversal puzzle. The player has to go upstream to use the current to get to the platform to reach the other side. We mostly cut this mechanic game wide, however it remained in essence in the section swimming to the aquarium as Ellie when you were avoiding the waves.
Okay. Muss ich da irgendwie drankommen? Oh, okay, ich dachte, ich würde es bei ersten Versuch nicht schaffen, aber doch. Ich muss da drankommen jetzt. Da geht's auch weiter, aber das ist auch etwas. Aber nein, ich muss zuerst hier irgendwie drankommen. Oh. Ich will eigentlich nicht, ich will eigentlich nichts überspringen, ne? Gibt's 15 sogar, oh.
Being able to climb out is not going to be so easy. To keep levels interesting and engaging, we alternate between positive and negative values the player experiences. Here, it's a positive to have found a ladder, but then a negative to discover it's not the solution.
Aber nicht hoch.
But then another positive to identify the next short-term goal of the doorway. By alternating between these opposing values, we give players what they expect, but not how they expect it.
Okay. Müssen wir wieder so durchlaufen. Ja. Hopp. Ich hoffe, ihr versteht mehr als ich, weil, wie gesagt, ich kann kein Englisch. Also doch, ich kann aber nicht so gut. Also ich verstehe viel mehr als ich. So ist das, wenn man kein Englisch kann. Ja, aber ich dachte, es gibt auch englische Dialogs, aber doch nicht, hier nicht. Und da geht's weiter. Wenn ich
When the
weg
players
zuerst
reach
das
the
hier, dann gehe ich
doorway
weiter.
and enter into the room, they're faced with a dead end. The real reason for this dead end room is that on the reversal, when exiting back out of the doorway, players are faced with the route onwards. A pipe that they'd not been able to see when they were swept past it on the way in, and something that was hidden from view when on the side platforms. The intention here being that the only option is to go off the standard path in order to search for a way out.
Okay.
Was haben wir hier?
Ja, was haben wir denn hier? Das ist schon interessant, ne? Ich fühle mich so, wie würde ich jetzt dritten Teil spielen, irgendwie. Ich fühle mich so jetzt. Ich weiß, es ist kein dritter Teil, aber ich fühle mich so irgendwie.
Verdammt, ich muss hier raus.
Ja, ja. Oh,
Throughout the
Ja,
rest of the
hier.
level, we also use light to indicate to the player that they were heading in the right direction. At each turn, however, we block the direct route forward. Players would know that they just have to keep finding alternative paths, promoting those feelings of being desperate and trapped.
Die Linie, wie wir oben sehen, links, dann, wenn die Linie so zu Ende ist, dann ist es auch schon. Dieser Text ist auch schon zu Ende. Also dann hört er auf, zu uns zu reden
We
einfach.
slowly introduce the player to consider climbing into smaller pipes and crouching in these tight spaces. This is to slowly build up to and
Umfang des
encourage the player
Raums.
to climb into such a small pipe that they'd have to be crawling on their stomach, which is something that the player previously may not have recognised as a playable space, let alone the desired route they need to take.
Ich bin mich irgendwie auch unsicher, weil ich habe hier Waffen, also ich muss dann bestimmt schießen.
Immer weiter hoch und raus.
Ich muss gleich bestimmt einmal schießen für etwas.
We added a tiny space just to reward the player's exploration with a pickup item, and we made sure it was something that made sense they'd find in this area. A canister and all the garbage that had been washed into the sewers from the surface. We loved the idea of making Ellie prone through a tiny dirty pipe in order to get out, as it was a great opportunity to use our
Ein
prone
enger
mechanic.
Kerl.
The unique camera setup was created to support crawling in these pipes, as the standard prone camera is much higher above the player. We also created custom collision in order for Ellie to maneuver in these tight spaces easily. Initially, the oblong collision capsule around her character caused issues crawling around corners. We put extra effort into the custom corner collision, so the movement experience is as smooth as the main game.
Okay, dann gehen wir jetzt mal los.
Okay. Nicht den Nerven verlieren, Ellie.
Ja, ja. Okay, da am wenigsten. Aber ich finde das schon krass, ehrlich gesagt, diese gelöschte Levels. Aber wieso haben die eigentlich diese Levels gelöscht?
In order for the player to feel cramped, claustrophobic, and desperate, we'd been enforcing the traversal mechanics that allow for a tight environment which promote these feelings. We introduced the use of the squeeze through so that we can keep the player feeling enclosed and tight, but without repeating the same geometry. Here we change from low ceilings with wider walls to high ceilings and tight walls to change up the spatial pacing and keep the level from repeating itself.
Ich weiß auch nicht, wann die Levels, ob die neu sind. Die sind eigentlich neu, weil ich habe früher Let's Vater als Serie gemacht, ne? Dann würde ich das auf jeden Fall mitkriegen. Also das muss ein bisschen neuer sein. Vielleicht ein Jahr alt, diese gelöschte Levels, keine Ahnung. Aber weil ich habe einfach die Serie gemacht, ne? Dann würde ich das bestimmt mitkriegen. Also auf jeden Fall, das ist was Neues, was es früher nicht gab. In der Last of Us.
Das wäre echt ein beschissener Ort zum Sterben.
Übertreib nicht. Oh, das ist einfach so ein kleiner Labyrinth, muss ich ehrlich sagen.
Originally, we had the waterline much higher here, so players had to swim through this tight tunnel. However, from watching user test feedback, it was occasionally causing people to discount the route entirely and turn back on themselves. So to avoid any risk of this happening in the final game, we present a lower water level so the tunnel is easy to see and commit to using. Although this isn't as impactful without the prone swim, it's the better decision as it means a smoother experience for the player with no backtracking frustration. As we surface from the water and over the crest of the slope, we reveal what is further in this tunnel. A clicker that has sprouted and the fungus has grown on the sides of the pipe. It was great to see people who user tested this area becoming increasingly worried as we forced the player to squeeze past the fungus and inches away from the clicker's face, all the time not being sure whether the clicker might be alive or attack them. Although we aren't as cruel as to force a clicker attack in such close proximity, we do have a payoff for this moment. This clicker momentarily turned into Joel to show Ellie's PTSD from what happened to Joel at the start of the game. Ultimately, we decided to save this moment for the farm level, as it was more impactful there because it could become the centrepiece of that experience. Whereas in the sewers, we weren't able to make it as much of a narrative point and give it the breathing room and reaction time that it deserves, given the tight space.
Okay, aber welchen Weg soll ich nehmen jetzt? Den oder den da?
Gottverdammt!
Nehm schon den hier. Ich komme noch zurück. Wenn ich kann. Aber ich kann bestimmt. Oh. Oh. Komm hier ein Klicker, bitte. Komm nur nicht zu leben. Ja. Oh. Nicht gesehen? Okay, das war Joel gerade. Oh.
Oh, Scheiße.
Aber ich will noch zurückkommen, ne? Ich will noch zurück. Also das bedeutet, dass ich nicht mehr zurückkommen kann. Ach, da muss ich nachher hier wiederkommen.
For the final section, we eventually opened you out into a wider area as you traverse through such tight spaces leading up to this. So changing the environmental pacing makes it begin to feel like we're coming to the end of Ellie's ordeal. An earlier iteration used the current that we'd shown at the start for a slightly tougher traversal puzzle to conclude the sewers. The ladder was clearly visible from most of the area, but the player was faced with a fast-flowing torrent of water they couldn't cross. If the player attempted to jump into the water, they were not able to swim across the ladder due to the water's speed. But instead, they had to traverse the pipe running along the top of the space in order to get across the water.
Da ist er hier geschlossen. Egal, wenn ich da nicht zurückkomme zu den alten Levels, wo ich da gesehen habe, dann mache ich einfach hier wieder das von neu. Und sage ich das dann. Glaube ich nicht, die Waffe, wenn ich die nicht benutze, hier gibt es keine Starkan oder Stalkan. Oh! Wow! Wow! Okay, ich habe gar nichts gesagt. Ich habe gar nichts gesagt. Jetzt hat er mich erschrocken, ne? Mann. Ich habe gar nichts gesagt. Gar nichts gerade.
Na,
Gibt's
bitte.
doch dieses Starkan. Starkan. Nein, nee, wieso nicht? Wenn ich kann, mache ich mir gerne.
This is the first time we get to see stalkers that are embedded into the walls.
Ja, das
So
baut
this optional room is a nice little early extra that the player gets if they explore. We also use the pickups to lure players over to be close enough to trigger the stalker's attack. This caused quite a few jump scares with user testers who played our game before its release.
Ja, lustig. Ach, ich kann die Tür so aufmachen. Okay, noch 2. Jetzt hier beenden. Kommst du das? Kommst du eigentlich zu den letzten jetzt? Okay, das kennen wir. Das ist schon dieser Raum, wo wir waren. So. Jetzt hier durch. Okay.
Using this pipe was retained in the iteration we shipped with, as it's the last of the extreme methods Ellie has to undergo in order to escape the sewers, and what she will go through in her pursuit of revenge.
Okay, 14 noch. Also was war eigentlich der andere da?
The last ladder climb is quite lengthy, and although we could have trimmed it down to a shorter climb, we liked how this
Ja,
last
da waren wir
segment of
mit
the
in
journey
diesem Wald und
brought
dann kommt
anticipation
diese
for whether there was success at the top or
Scars.
not after all you've been through. Ultimately, the ladder exits out into the subway station, which is how it connects in the final game. Ellie then has to find her way to the hospital from here, crossing paths with the Scars for the first time.
Ja. Das wissen wir auch. Genau, hier ist es schon. Und das war auch alles für den Level. So, und jetzt der Jagd. Auf Ellie voll kleine Blutspur, okay, dann bin ich ja gespannt. Ich glaube, das ist nach denen, wo eigentlich die Ellie verlassen hat, oder? Oder vor Lost Levels und also
For
das
this
Beuden.
third and final
Ja,
deleted level, what we call the boar hunt sequence, this was a sequence pretty late in the game. It was right after the whole Seattle Abby sequence where Abby spares Ellie. And then we wanted to come back into Ellie's story, but keep it a bit mysterious of how much time has passed, where is Ellie
ah
now.
nee, das war
So
noch
we're
da,
coming in
wo
on
wir
Ellie,
erstmal in den
and she's
Spam waren.
following a trail of blood. And we wanted to mirror in a way the deer hunt sequence from the first game, but this time do it with a boar. And there's
Ah,
something with Ellie that now she can't let go of this violence. She's pursuing it, even against this innocent animal. This was another opportunity to show how the violence that Ellie has experienced, the violence that she witnessed being afflicted onto Joel, is still sticking with her. And she's still experiencing these PTSD moments. This was a sequence that was pretty far along and was cut pretty late in production. Parts of it are still really rough, but the gameplay, the building blocks were all there. I think you'll have fun to see, like, again, a rough, unfinished sequence that you can play. You can see all the way to the end, and including a cinematic that we end up cutting. And the remnants of the sequence ended up being mentioned in Ellie's journal. So this part of the story that we developed still made its way into the game as kind of
so
optional stuff that you could read
Zeichnung von
about,
dem Buch.
but here you get to experience it. So as a
Hab ich auch
reminder,
gesehen.
this is pretty rough, months away from being finished, but you get to see it now.
Also hatte wohl diese Panikattacke hatte und so. Und jetzt hier sind wir. Okay. Ich bin gespannt, wie das hier aussehen wird. Wir haben nur die Waffe hier.
Wo bist du?
Okay.
So the boar hunt was one of the hardest levels for me to work on.
Überblick.
It was a huge challenge with the systems that we had, and we kept trying, but it never felt quite right. Originally, the level happened after the Jackson Festival, which also got cut, but before Farm. Once the festival got cut, it became the prologue to Farm. The intended experience is that we jump forward in time after the fight with Abby in the theater. We don't know where Dina is. We likely assume she's dead because she was just bleeding out. Ellie is alone. Her hair is short. So maybe this is the future or the present. And she's hunting. Hunting who? Abby still?
Also warte, also wie gesagt, so ist das, wenn man kein Englisch kann. Also ist das nach dem Kampf mit Debbie oder vor? Soll ich jetzt gehen? Ich glaube einfach den Blut, ja, Blutfolgen, oh mein Gott. Sogar Ellie hat dem Blut gefolgt und ich weiß gar nicht, wohin ich hingehen soll. Ja, einfach hinter Blut.
In early iterations of the fight, it was more arena-like.
Was
The
für
player
Kampfphase soll
slowly
ich meine
whittles
Waffe
down the boar's
rausholen?
health. Ellie gets more visceral and more vicious. We get a little worried about her. As the boar gets weaker, more panicked, more feral, and we start feeling sympathetic to the boar was the hope. In all of these iterations, especially of these wider areas, it required custom AI and scripting to make sure it continued to feel organic
Yeah.
as an animal, but we really needed it to do specific stuff. It needed
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
able to close distances really, really quickly. It needed to charge to attack, but we wanted the feeling of hunting, so we needed to track it down from afar. And we also needed to discourage the player from attacking the boar when it's that close, or it would kind of turn into this melee kerfuffle. How do we do this in our world while keeping the boar believable?
Okay, dann gehen wir weiter und schauen. Oh,
We must have gone through 5 or 6 iterations of the boar fight and all, and every single time it changed pretty drastically. We split it into clear phases, where one was like all long range. We tried another where you're getting close and you get the jump on it quite literally. You're jumping off of a rock to attack it. And then finally, we tried a bunch where you almost sort of go around a bunch of trailers and try and wrestle it. We uncovered after some time that taking down a boar over several phases felt very laborious and a little dramatic. It was comically long, it felt too boss-like, a little too gamey. We decided to cut the first few phases, and we opted for a cold open after the boar had already been hurt off-screen. So that allowed us to focus on feeling like we're closing in on prey and to introduce the boar when it was at its most dangerous. Already hurt, already feral, much too close for comfort. And so the thinking was it would bring us more into Ellie's mindset. Is this really hunting for food, or is she hunting for some other reason?
Okay. Dann folgen wir einfach dem Blutspur einfach weiter. Wir können uns auch hier schon umschauen. Also so, wo wir bei dieser Farm waren, wir könnten einfach uns nicht so weit entfernen. Das ist schon
The
interessant.
gas station was built to highlight the bore's destructiveness. Since it's cramped, the boar feels larger. We also feel trapped with it, though perhaps it's trapped with us. When it charges, it gets to us quickly, so we must be on our toes. This made it more aligned with Ellie's sort of hunting for trouble mindset. Listening became more important, as well as moving around slowly so it didn't hear you. Could you spot it before it saw or heard you? And could you get a shot off quickly enough so you could dodge out of the way? Or is the shot worth the cost after? It feels like a gamble. By the end of the fight, everything would likely be in shambles. The boar would burst through the back, and Ellie would follow it and finally enact revenge.
Okay, da bin ich ja gespannt.
Okay. Ich sehe nichts.
Oh, oh, oh. Soll ich ihn abknallen? Ich glaube ja. Ja, ich muss ihn abknallen. Komm her. Tut mir leid, aber das Spiel hat mir sein Befehl gegeben. Komm her. Tut mir leid, zack.
Geht keinen Kopf.
Der arme Ellie.
The boar kill was supposed to be anything but glorious. With the boar whimpering at the back of the gas station after Ellie's relentless hunt. After this, hearing the drone that we kind of come to associate with Ellie's trauma, we would hard cut to the stream where she's washing her hands and holding rabbits that she hunted, about to return to Dina. And there would be no mention of the boar.
Okay. Dieser Schwein ist. Ah, er ist schon tot. Und das alles? Okay. Ja, das war alles. Ja, in die Kommentare schreiben, welcher Level war der beste? Die Kanalisation, Jackson Party oder die Jagd? Ich muss ehrlich sagen, für mich war das Beste die Jagd. Ohne Spaß. Das war für mich das Beste. Ach, war das noch ein kurzes Szenen mit diesem Joel noch am Ende war auch ein bisschen gruselig. Ich ehrlich sagen. Ihr könnt mir auch in die Kommentare schreiben, welcher Level der beste war, wie gerade gesagt. Folgt mir auf jeden Fall. Ich hoffe, irgendwann kommt Last of Us Part 2. Ich hoffe immer, wenn ich Last of Us zum Beispiel spiele, ich sag so, boah, bitte, dass irgendwann ein dritter Teil rauskommt. Ohne Spaß. Immer wenn ich das spiele, sage ich mir das in den Kopf. Also Leute, haut rein und ciao.